Hey everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. I am just dropping this special little clip into all the episodes. So, no matter what episode you're listening to, this is actually pretty current as of July 2024. I wanted to come on here and just say a big thank you to Earworthy because the Life Shift podcast was just named the best overall podcast of the year in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. And you've probably seen some articles written about the Life Shift podcast before, written by Earworthy. And now he is launching from his online publication, he is launching these yearly winners of independent podcast awards. And these are specifically for indie podcasters. We are those that wear all the hats. We create the show. Some people write the show. We're producers, sound engineers. We troubleshoot all the tech. We do any kind of research if we need to. We host the shows. We distribute the shows. We do all the things that relate to our shows because we love it. And it's so nice to see my name in a list with some other amazing podcasts like Multispective, which won Best Life Lessons Podcast. Salad with a Side of Fries won Best Health Podcast. Bippity Boppity Business won Best Business Advice Podcast. And there are so many more. And so I just want to come on here and say thank you to Earworthy for not only doing these awards every year and just honoring some of us indie podcasters that sometimes feel like we're just shouting into the void, but we're not. We're just doing what brings us joy, and hopefully through that work it brings other people joy. In my case, for the Life Shift, I hope that each episode finds the ears that needed to hear it the most so that they feel a little less alone in their circumstance. But also, Earworthy writes all these amazing publications pretty much weekly, every week, every weekday, I should say, where he writes on Blogger, Medium, Substack, Tumblr, Vocal, Many Stories, and for other places. And he really just highlights the independent podcasters. So thank you, Frank, for everything you do with Earworthy and for recognizing all of us in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. If you'd like to read more, please head to medium.com/EAR hyphen WORTHY. Thanks again and enjoy this episode.
I got in trouble in Pennsylvania, and while I was in court, I gave him a false name. I gave him all that stuff. I didn't have a driver's license on me. They ran my fingerprints. I'm thinking, oh no, this is a whole nother state. I'll be fine. And while I was sitting in the courtroom waiting for my arraignment, I was sitting actually behind the door, waiting for these officers to come to court. And I saw them, and they looked real happy, and they were high-fiving one another. And I said, and as I see them come in, intuition is kicking in. So I am actually sitting behind the door, so they can't see me. So they went into the courtroom, and that's when I took off. Yeah, to make a long story short, I made it all the way back to California.
My guest this week is Jonathan Greene. He's known professionally as Devon and Greene because he's a writer, a small business owner, a father, and a husband. But his journey to this point was anything but straightforward. His story actually takes us from the gripping confines of a prison cell to the liberating freedom of self-redemption. In this episode, Jonathan opens up about his past, a time when he was caught in the whirlwind of fast money and even faster living. It was a period that ultimately led him to serve time in a Pennsylvania state penitentiary. His story is a stark reminder of how easy it is to really veer off course when surrounded by the wrong influences. But Jonathan's story is not one of despair, but rather one of redemption and transformation. It's a story of a man who, at his lowest point, who looked into his daughter's eyes and vowed to change, to shift his life's direction for her. Jonathan's journey is proof that it's never too late to change your path and start anew. He also opens up about the challenges of reintegrating into society. He talks about the struggle to find employment and the invaluable second chance he received. His resilience, perseverance, and determination to create a better life for himself and his family will certainly inspire you. Before we get started, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters. And if you're interested in directly supporting the Life Shift podcast, head to patreon.com/the Life Shift podcast, and you can find out all the information there. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jonathan Greene. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I am here with Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Matt. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. And for those of you listening, we are trying something brand new today, and we're testing out an iPad recording, and you're on the road. And so I appreciate you pulling over and taking some time to have this conversation.
Well, man, it's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm trying to do my best out here, trying to be safe. And I found a location that had some great internet speed. So that's where I am.
Here we are. And just so everyone knows, he's not actually driving right now. He's parked, and we're doing this in a safe way. And we were talking a little bit before recording about how the Life Shift podcast, for people that haven't listened before, and just a little backstory for you, this show came out of a school assignment, which is kind of funny to think about, but really it stems from when I was 8. My mom died in a motorcycle accident, and from one day to the next, my life trajectory was completely different because my dad lived 1,000 miles away. My mom was a primary parent. All the things in life were going to be different. And so I always wondered, do other people have like this singular moment where everything changed? And so when we were communicating back and forth, you kind of identified this moment in your life that that made you feel different or made you do things differently. And so I'm so glad that you're here to talk about it. But before you kind of divulge the secrets of that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about who you are at this moment, and something that give us a little context without giving away too much.
Well, my name is Jonathan Greene. I am a writer known as Devon and Greene. I am about to come out with my second book called Paladin, Briscoe Duvall's A Savior of House LaFleur. And I am also a small business owner. I own a small trucking company, me and my wife, and I am still driving.
And I bet there's a lot of time for you to think about what you want to write and put together these thoughts and whatnot. So what is that where you do a lot of your thinking?
My habits are I write every night.
Oh,
I have to write every night. It's just you got to keep in that mind frame.
yeah, that's awesome. What type of books are these that you write?
Fiction.
Fiction. That's
Yes.
hard. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
All right. So
You know
why don't
what? You put your mind to something, you could do anything.
fair. I think writing about real life sometimes feels like fiction as well. So I bet we could figure that out. And I would imagine that a lot of the things that you think about come from real world experiences that you can kind of enhance or
Exactly.
make
Exactly.
them a
Yes.
little bit more fiction
That's where your
like.
ideas come from. Your ideas comes from mostly real world experiences, real world things that happen.
And
Yes.
you have quite the real world experience, I would say. And I'm so grateful that you're going to talk about it here on the podcast. So I like, and so do the listeners, like to hear kind of like the lead up to this pivotal moment. So I'm wondering if you could kind of paint the picture of what your life was like before this major shift that you feel changed who you are.
Well, let me tell you, in the late 80s and early 90s, I was getting in and out of trouble. Drugs were pervasive in my part of the world, in California, in Pasadena, Los Angeles, Compton, and I was all over the place, and I was making money. And I got, when you're young and you get money fast, you spend money fast, and you're doing a lot of things you shouldn't be doing. And turns out I got in trouble in Pennsylvania. And while I was in court, I gave him a false name. I gave him all that stuff. I didn't have a driver's license on me. So, they ran my fingerprints. I'm thinking, oh no, this is a whole nother state. I'll be fine. And while I was sitting in the courtroom waiting for my arraignment, I was sitting actually behind the door, waiting for these officers to come to court. And I saw them, and they looked real happy. they were high-fiving one another, and I said, and as I see them come in, my heart's starting to fall. I mean, I'm getting a strain. Intuition is kicking in. So I am actually sitting behind the door, so they can't see me. So they went into the courtroom, and that's when I took off.
Oh no.
Yeah, make a long story short, I made it all the way back to California.
Wow. What door were you sitting behind that they couldn't see you? What kind of door were you sitting behind?
I was at the courthouse and there was a big old door and they really couldn't see me.
Oh. So you were like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I made it all the way to California. It was great. Me and my fiance at the time were talking, and my daughter had just been born. We had a long conversation. I said, you know what? I got to turn myself in. We called, made some arrangements, turned myself in and talked to the attorney. Everything was great. I turned myself in and I went to LA County Jail and I'm in there for 9 days. They had 10 days to come get me.
And you're like, they're not coming.
Yeah, but actually the morning of the 10th day, they called me. I said, oh man. So I had to go and went to Pennsylvania and face the music.
Well, I mean, good on you for facing the music.
Yeah.
There's, I think a lot of people that get caught up in that world, at some point, you almost feel invincible. Did you have any of those moments where you're just like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh
like
yeah.
I've gotten away with this for so long and everything is working out in my favor or quote unquote favor in a good way. You kind of feel like, whatever, I can do whatever I want. And case in point, you left the Pennsylvania courthouse and drove all the way back to California. And what was that drive like? Were you just like,
Well, no, I got on a bus.
oh, wow.
I got
Okay.
on a bus. Yes.
Did you
I
feel
took
like a
a
fugitive or did you feel like you were just going home?
You know what? Yeah. Yeah.
I asked that out of curiosity because I think, I remember being a teenager and it just felt like the only way I was going to get in trouble is if my dad found out. Like it was like this feeling of like I can do anything in public so long as my dad doesn't find out. I never did anything quite like that. So I'm very curious as to kind of what your mind was thinking at that time because teenagers are a little weird.
When you grow up where I grew up, you got to think, I grew now, don't get me wrong, I grew up in a nice area. I didn't grow up in the ghetto. I didn't grow up around a whole lot of criminal element. But what I did see was the aspirational side of drug dealers that were not near me, but there was one in particular who lived down the street from me. This guy he had a Porsche club, and they used to have parties, and I'm talking about 100, maybe 150 Porsches parked all up and down this guy's street. And it used to blow my mind. And when I was young, I'm like, what does this guy do? And it turns out, he was doing the wrong thing. But, a lot of these guys were my childhood heroes. I mean, these guys were making money hand over foot. They were living a lifestyle. Some of them were driving Rolls Royces. And, when you see this and you're like, how did he do this?
Well, and you said that was like late 80s, early 90s. And so
Yes.
if you go to try to find a quote unquote real job, you're making $4 an hour, $3 an
Yes.
hour, something like that. And
And I was
so,
working at Taco Bell.
right. And you weren't
Yes.
bringing in that much, right?
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Cause I remember my first job in the mid 90s was like $4 maybe an hour, something like that. And so I can imagine how how easy that could be. Why not go into that world? What happened when you faced the music?
I got maybe two. What was my sentence? I was sentenced to, I think, 3 years,
Oh, wow.
something like that. And I think I did 18 months in, and maybe I can't remember what the actual sentence was. I think I did 18 months, and then I got out, paroled to California, and I did, I had to do the rest on parole.
So you had to do 18 months in another state away from your fiance.
Yes, in Pennsylvania, in the snow, shoveling snow and doing all that stuff. Yes, it was in Pennsylvania, and I had to pay. I did the crime. I had to do the time. That's just the way it was.
What was that experience like for you? And the reason I ask, I just spoke with someone actually on the day that we're recording this. The episode that came out was a gentleman who was sentenced for 50 years in a
Oh,
state penitentiary and at 17 years old, and he had to serve 17 years of that and got out and now works in
wow.
justice reform. And so, but he talks about the experience inside prison and how he approached it. So I'm curious, before I tell you how he approached it, I'm wondering what that experience, the 18 months of doing your time, was like.
Let me back up a little bit. The first time I ever got in trouble, I went to a California state penitentiary on what is called a 90-day observation because I wasn't really a bad guy. They thought, and maybe this and that and the other. So they give you 90 days. They want you to see what prison life is like, and then if you're if you seem like you're a good guy, they'll put you on parole or so forth and so on. Make a long story short, I was in California at Chino State Penitentiary. Now, Chino is a center where they send you to all over the state of California out to the prison you're going to. So it's an intake center. So I'm in Chino, and I'm about to give you a real life story, man.
I'm ready for it.
So I'm in Chino. You go through the lines, you do all the stuff. You got to get butt naked, and they got to check you for drugs and so forth and so on. So I'm in a cell waiting to go to the yard the next day or so, ate after dinner, and there's a kid. Maybe I don't know if he was in a radius of me where I can basically hear him talking. So he was either upstairs from me to the right or to the left of me. I can't remember right now where exactly he was, but I do remember what happened. And the kid starts, get off me, get off. I'm screaming and screaming. And whoever was his roommate raped this kid. And you could hear the screaming, you could hear him hollering, crying, yelling. And it probably took the police, the security there, 15, 20 minutes to get there. And I felt so bad for this kid. You know, it was like, wow. But the real reason I felt so bad was because, they should have been there 2, 3 minutes. They should have been there,
Yeah,
but maybe the kid had a terrible attitude. I don't know. To
that's not
make
an
a long story
excuse.
short, they didn't care. They treated him the way they wanted to, and he paid the price. And that that was my first day in the penitentiary, and that left a lasting impression on me. Yes, it did.
So with those 90 days, it's almost like they see if you can come back out. If you're okay, we don't have to keep you any longer. It almost feels like you could also, did you feel like you could also like play along and you could get through this and then go back to your normal life?
Well, actually, that is pretty much what I did. I did. See, I was always a talker, so I never really worried about anything like that. Anything happening to me like that. I could pretty much talk my way out of whatever I need to talk my way out of. But it was an experience, and I got through it. And after the 90 days, I ended up doing about 6 months the first time, and I got out. And I had some guys I met in there, and who were supposed to do all this and that. And I tell you, first few months after I got out of jail, I lost a lot of money because I was dealing with some guys who were, you deal with people, you think one thing, and they're a complete dope heads, and they're living a whole different life than I thought they were living.
And then yeah, and then you kind of got yourself in a little bit more trouble. Was your
Yeah,
experience,
later on in
how
life,
many years between these experiences?
probably 5 or so, something like that. Yeah.
I was just curious what that experience is like because the gentleman that talked to, Sean Wilson, he was in prison and he was like, I was 17. Yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I committed a crime, but I'm being punished every day for 17 years, up to 50 years. And he took that experience and really like chose to get his education and better himself and came out and now he's working in justice reform across the country, changing things around that he experienced, and so I'm always curious of like what that experience is like because he's like not many other people were doing what I was doing. They were kind of angry and
Yes, he was. What is this called? Everybody has a way they deal with doing what you do when you're inside. And I've read the second time I was in. I read the Bible from cover to cover. I read the Quran. I probably read 30 books or so. I read a lot of Iceberg Slim books. You read. Well, I chose to read. You can go to the library, they can bring you library books, whatever. I chose to read to better my mind, spirit, body, soul, and however you want to put it. I chose to better myself.
was there something inside when you were in Pennsylvania that made you think, okay, when I get out, I'm done? Like, was there a moment that was like, no more of this?
Well, that that is the moment I told you about. My daughter, she was my girlfriend at the time. We hadn't gotten married. She bought my daughter. And my daughter was the cutest thing on the planet. And she looked at me with those. Now she's looking. They came to visit me at the visiting hall, but you don't have visits where you can come sit at a table. They didn't have that. You were behind bars. I'm at a table on a phone talking to them. They're on the other side. My daughter looked at me and dad, and I was done. I knew that day I wasn't coming back. I was finished with this life.
When she looked at, how old was she?
She was one, just over one, maybe one and yeah, I'd say around one. Yeah, but she talked real early. She talked real early.
When you were looking at her, what was going through your mind?
I'd never wanted my daughter to see me like this again. Never.
I wonder if part of you thought, okay, well, she's young enough. Hopefully, she won't remember this or remember me this way.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
can create that life outside. How much longer was it until you were able to like hug her again and be with her like permanently?
She probably came midway through my sentence. And then when I got out, the rest was history. I had a son. I got married. Me and my wife got married, and then we had a son as well. And at first, I couldn't get a job at McDonald's. If you believe that, McDonald's want to hire me.
I believe it.
But luckily, I got a job for a company called Here Almost Beverage, and somebody I knew, who was actually my wife now, she called me and she said, "Jonathan, look, are you still looking for work?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Look, these people are hiring right now, and they don't have that thing on
The checkbox.
thing, the box where are you an ex-felon? None of that." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, and I told them about you." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Can he call you now?" I said, "Yeah, he can call me." His name was Marty. Marty called me. We talked, and he said, "Can you take a drug test?" I said, "I can take a drug test whenever you want me to." "Can you take one tomorrow?" "Sure." So the rest was history, man. And once I got that job, oh, it was, everything else was looking up.
Well, it also sounds like it's another pivotal moment in your life and someone giving you a shot, someone giving you a chance,
Oh
you know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
because I've also talked to another woman. She got a 5-year sentence from having a possession of one pill on her.
Oh wow.
And when she got out, same situation. It was like the whole world was against her because of that one pill. She had to check the box and then she was immediately discounted. And so in your experience, this your now wife reached out and like gave you a connection to like change your life because you could have gone on had you missed that call, had you done any of those pieces, where
Yeah,
how
you're
would your
right.
life go out that way. So there's like these pivotal moments, like so close to each other, of you just kind of getting someone looking at you as a human being and saying, "Hey, this is some help."
You're right. You're absolutely right. And when you I had a job lined up at the post office. When I came home, I had a job. My sister-in-law at the time, my wife's at the time, her sister-in-law worked at the post office. She had the job for me lined up at the post office. That's how I got paroled to California instead of being paroled to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I had to have all this lined up. So I go in for the job, and he tells me, Jonathan, I'm sorry, I can't hire you. I said, what? It was the strangest thing to me because he already knew about my history and so forth and so on. But all of a sudden, now you can't hire me.
This is probably still happening nowadays,
Oh,
in the
yes,
sense that there
definitely.
is not enough reform in some way where people are allowed to come out, have redemption, have like, or an easier road to redemption, I guess. You shouldn't have to fight
Yes.
so hard to be a human when you come out and get an apartment or get a job or all these other pieces. And fortunately, you were able to do this. What was like the biggest difference in who Jonathan was the day before he was released and when you started working at that job?
Be quite honest, I think I was a little bit humbled from a lot of that experience. And I
Mm,
was more, it made me a bit more driven.
okay.
So when I got that job at Harold Lambo's Beverage, I worked. And I mean, I would be there at 6, 7 in the morning, and I wouldn't go home sometimes till 12, 1 o'clock at night because I was doing, remember Snapple? When Snapple came out,
Hmm.
I was merchandising Snapple all over LA, and I was building displays and I was filling shelves, so forth and so on. And Snapple was gangbusters right then. And hey, I like money, so I'm doing everything I can do. Hey Jonathan, can you stop by here? We'll pay you. Sure. And that's the strange thing because I ran into a guy named Steve McQueen, and Steve worked for a company called St. Ides Malt Liquor. Mackenzie River was the name of the company. And Steve kept on telling me, man, he started telling me once I ran into him a few times, he said, man, I'm going to hire you. I said, yeah, okay, whatever you're talking about. And make a long story short, maybe a few months later, I get a call from Marty, and Marty says, listen, Jonathan, Steve wants to hire you. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, you don't understand. They're expanding. Steve is going to be I can't remember what Steve's title was, but they wanted to hire me as a regional under Steve. I said, well, what would my duties be? He said, your duties would be Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico. You would be dealing with the distributors under Steve, and your thing is placement for St. Ides Malt Liquor, growing the brand. They're going to pay you a lot of money. I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he started naming some figures, and then he started naming the allowances they give you. And then he told me a lot of these guys are over here who's been salesmen for a long time. They would love this job. They're going to be kind of jealous of you. I'm just warning you now. I said, okay, I could deal with that. So anyway, he hung up, and well, yes, Steve called me, and man, Steve said, Jonathan, this, that, the other, and he gave me the whole package, and I said, okay, I think we can do this. And man, that was one of the best moves I ever did in my life. Oh man, they gave me a car allowance, they gave me per diem, they gave me credit card, all that stuff. Oh, we got a ball.
Was it interesting to you as a kid who was kind of seeing all these people doing things that were illegal to make all that money? Was it interesting to you to finally be in a place where you were making all of that money and getting all these perks and actually like doing something legitimate in that way?
Well, it kind of. See, I've seen both sides. I was raised, and my dad was a writer, and he was raised. I was raised. I knew a lot of Hollywood people growing up,
Okay.
so I saw that side of it. My uncles, everybody was your uncle back then, and I had Uncle Saul David. He was a producer of a few movies back in the day, and he did Logan's Run.
Mm,
Remember that movie? That
yeah.
was him. And so I grew up. I went on the set of King Kong, the one that was
Not the
in
original.
I guess not the original, but the second one when they did, that was actually a robot, and he had 4 arms, and I actually had a picture as a kid, me sitting in his palm, and it was great. I had a great childhood. Saw a lot of stuff. I had a blast. So I saw money on both sides of it. I just saw the money coming quicker illegally.
With this new job and all these perks, did it feel like you earned this, or you was there like some new feeling to that? I feel like
No, it felt like I paid my dues.
okay,
It felt like I had paid my dues.
yeah.
I had to go through the trials and tribulations to get here, and I felt like I had earned this spot where I am, because I was working. A lot of these guys that go home, they're 9 to 5 and they're out of there and they're going home. I wasn't trying to do that.
And you probably felt like you had to prove a lot more
Oh yeah, definitely.
because you're starting at a lower spot, right? Right? I think people
Yes,
like you weren't literally starting there, but I think society puts you at a disadvantage, I guess, if you will,
yes,
and you had to work
yes,
twice as hard to get that role. But then you get that reward of, that hard work that you put into it. I think there's something to be said that kind of fuels people to go farther with that. Did
yes,
that fuel
yes.
you to keep going, or was this contentment here?
Definitely, definitely. You get to a point, my life has been like a roller coaster, and I could have given up a lot of times, but you gotta push through. You gotta push through. You gotta have a focus. You gotta realize I'm not ready to give up.
Well, I mean, I guess seeing a child of your own and seeing like,
Oh
oh,
man.
how she sees me right now is really not kind of how I want her to grow up seeing me, right? And which was different in the previous times when you didn't have a daughter, right? It was like you came out and you're like, meh, I can continue down this road. And it was just until like you saw that.
You're right.
It's interesting how our lives can and shift in something like that seems like so small, if you will, like just a
Yes.
small moment, and like all of a
Yes.
sudden you're like, oh, your non-rose color glasses come off.
Yes. I understand how your life can change. Basically, the life shift.
I mean, mine is obvious, right? Like my mom died, so like there's nothing I could do about that. It is a big shift when you're a kid, but there are obviously we have more than one pivotal moment in our lives, and I like to center the conversation around one that we feel kind of change your life. And there's like these two in this small period of time in your life that are just like so inspiring, because I think for a lot of people, because of the way society is set up, wouldn't take the route that you took, when you got
Yeah.
out there, because everything's against you and you have to fight and you have to stay positive and you have to move through things that are unfair, if you will. And so good on you.
You also get people from your past trying to pull you back. That's something you gotta understand. You'll have guys that knew you from the streets and knew what you were doing, and man, look, man, I have this and that and the other, and they're calling. Nah, man, I'm good. I'm not trying to go back to that life.
Did you find it? Do any of them try to like sabotage or anything your successes? Have you seen any of that?
No, they didn't try to sabotage, but a lot of people, you find some people who are upset with you, because they have they want to make money, and they know you used to make money, and then now, when you're not willing to do what you used to do, they're like, man, come on, man, I got this stuff I got to get rid of, man, help me. No, man, I'm good.
How did you come into being a business owner and a writer and all these things after this? I mean, how did that evolve? How did your life evolve from there? Because now prison's behind you, or jail is behind you. How do you move forward in that?
Well, you keep on a path, man, and I did my work for the beer business for years, and then when the beer business when they sold the company, I went and started flipping houses. I got into real estate, and oh, that was great, great time. That was great for a few years there in California, and then in 2007, 2008, when the bottom fell out of real estate,
Yeah, you don't want to be in real estate then.
yeah. Yeah, I lost everything. I lost everything. Now you got to think. I had houses. I had boats. I, I I bought my second boat. I had cars. I had all that stuff, and I lost it all. And because I was leveraged, I wasn't cash rich. I was leveraged. Everything was through, loan here, loan there, so forth and so on. And then I'd done some stuff and helped my mom out, and I'd always been a giver, and you people ask you for money, and I'm a sucker at times. I try to be, no man, but there's been a lot of times I've given people a lot of money, and at that time it all came back to bite me in the butt, man. I lost it all, and I went to Pennsylvania. I mean, went to New Orleans, and I was doing adjusting for State Farm in New Orleans, and I did that for a while until there was one of those messages came by. Mr. Greene, we are concerned about you're something about being an ex-felon and so forth and so on, and you're not supposed to be an ex-felon with State Farm. And I told the guys that when I did the thing, I said, yeah, I was an ex-felon, but evidently the actual company I was working for wasn't. Everybody was looking for adjusters, and I knew all the construction part of it, so it was easy for me. I ended up leaving State Farm and started. I was doing houses. I was rehabbing houses out there for people, putting them back together after Katrina. And I got too many people still owe me money to this day from out there, man.
Yeah.
And when you don't get paid, and you like, and you don't make your money till the end of the thing is done. And when you get to the end and they don't have the money, and you're like, well, where's it? So finally I said, I got to make a change, and I like trucks. I've always been a driver. I went to training in Hammond, Louisiana, and then I went to work in the trucking field in January of roughly 2013. I got in with a company called Snyder. I drove for them for about a year and a half. I left them, went to oil in Corpus Christi, Texas. I did that. That was great.
You're
Now,
doing a lot of
that
things.
made me some money. That got me out of debt. I was paying child support and all that stuff, and that got me out of debt. Then in November 2015, I was going to work for Snyder in California because me and my current wife were getting together at the time. And a lady from Snyder called me and said, look, if I could put you in your own truck, what would we need to do to put you in your own truck? I said, well, what are you talking about? Because Snyder had a program for Snyder drivers that they would give you a truck. Now, the payments were $856 a week,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
they'll give you a truck, they'll lease you a truck, and if you wanted, basically, they had a program. And so we talked, and that's what I did. I leased that truck for 3 years. Then I wanted to lease it back from them, but they went up on the price, so we went through Wells Fargo, did that route, and then right around Katrina, right around when COVID hit, we paid off everything. Paid off my wife's car, paid off truck, and the rest is history. Then I had to make a long story short, I had to get another truck because I blew that engine in the first truck. So now I have a 2020.
Your life is like you said, like a roller coaster. There's so many
Yes.
things that you've done that a lot of people would never even get the experience to. And I think there's some silver linings in some of these moments of the things that
Yeah.
you learned and the experiences. There's a lot of humbling moments that you've talked about.
Yes.
How do you where do you get that energy or the fortitude or the strength to keep going, to keep pushing through, to be, try new things and try to be successful in something new? Where does that come from?
I don't know. I would say this. There's everybody has a nature about them. It might be in my nature. It might be innate within me. I don't know, but might be instilled in me when I was younger from my parents. I don't know, but I've never seen. My mom was a trailblazer. My mom, she was, she's a woman, and she had to deal with all the problems in society as being a woman and not getting her fair share in money and compensation and so forth and so on. And when she started at JPL in Pasadena, California, part of NASA, when she started there, man, she was the audit coordinator. She was the whole department. It was her. And by the time she left, there was probably 40 people there.
Yeah, so so it was probably instilled in you, and you probably saw these things in your family and the people around you. I feel like,
Yes.
like relating to your story, I this is sad, but I probably would have given up so many of the times of the things that you experience, because it's like, at what point do I just keep pushing? But you're dealt all these hands that were not ideal, but maybe in a sense they were, because they taught you the things that you needed for the next part of your journey. Do you ever think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Because I knew, like you said, there's pivotal things that happen in your life that make you change. And there were several times I had to make a change, even with money wise. My wife's an accountant, and before we got together, I read The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and because I knew I had to change, I knew I had to change with money. That was one of my doubts. I could always make money, but I would spend
You're very good at
most of it.
spending it, yeah,
Yes,
and,
exactly.
and
So
giving
I
it
had to
away.
change. I had to change. I have a cousin who can every dime he's ever made, he still has. So I had to start talking to people, associating myself with people like that, and learning and listening and paying attention.
It's weird to think about an experience in which, like, that last time that you went to jail in Pennsylvania was like something that served you really well long term, in the way that it changed you. It changed
Yes,
the trajectory of
yes,
your life, dare I say, in almost a positive way, because you were
yeah.
going down a road that probably wouldn't have ended very positively, maybe.
You're right.
And so turning yourself in, facing the music, seeing your daughter, someone giving you a chance or giving you a call on that first job, all of
Yes.
these things kind of led you to this version of you, which now I can see why you're a fiction writer and how you could probably use some of these experiences. How much of your books have any of your own experiences in them?
Well, I really, I read a lot of books. I've read like Sidney Sheldon, and back in the day, a lot of books. And I'm a movie buff. Man, I love movies. Yeah, so my books really don't have my experiences in them. They have my imagination can run. So I try to let it run. And every day I'll write down a few little ideas, and then at night I'll start writing. And then sometimes I'll write 4 pages, and sometimes I'll write a paragraph. But it always takes me, on average, for me to get 1 page of text, it does take me 4 pages to write, because I don't know why. It's just the way I write.
What does writing do for you?
Oh man, it's the challenge of writing. It's the challenge of writing that does something for me, man. I love. I write. First off, I write what I like. Once I did that and wrote my first book, my wife, she's my harshest critic, and she's also my biggest fan. And once she read my first book, and she said, "Oh, that's really good." What? What? And she said, "Oh, that's really good." And so that validation right there is all I need, because if she likes it, I know then some other people will like it. I write what I like first and foremost, and then after that, if the public likes it, great. But I'm gonna write it any way it goes.
Well, I ask that because a lot of people use writing as a tool to process things, or to get into a state or a zone or something along those lines. I mean, my own personal experience, like, it took me about 8 years after my mom died for me to, like, crack a little bit. And I cracked when I had to write something about her passing. And it was an experience in which I'm very thankful for. It was a very cathartic moment. And ever since then, I've always tried to, like, when I need to process something, I just write. I don't write with a purpose, I just write. So it's a little different than your process, I guess. Sounds like you have kind of a purpose and a goal in mind. Mine just like just dump it all out. But it's very cathartic.
When you finish a book, when you finish it and you're finally putting a pen down and you're really done with it, that feeling of accomplishment, there's nothing better than me. Nothing better. It's just something that when I wrote my first book, I just wanted to finish it and finish it to my best, to do my best in creating something out of nothing.
And you did it.
And I guess I live vicariously through my writing too, because both my characters are men. So, you know, but yes, I enjoy the challenge of putting it all together. People enjoying my writing, so if somebody reads it and they enjoy it, that makes me feel better. I mean, let's face it, we all do. But if not, at least I wrote it. I accomplished something, and I'll move on to the next thing.
Do you ever think back of like the 15, 16, 17-year-old version of yourself and what he was imagining of his life or his future? Did you and would this align? Do you think you're where do you think you'd
Yeah,
fall?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it would align, but the funny thing is, me and my wife were having a conversation the other day, and I've known her since we were kids, and we were together years ago, and we broke up. We both got married to different people. We both realized if we had been together all this time, I would be. We work well together. Let me put it that way. I would be in a different financial bracket. Let's put it
Mm,
that way.
yeah.
I would be much better off in life by now.
Money wise.
Yes, money wise, totally different. It would be because we just click like that.
But you might have a different tapestry underneath as far as your
Yes,
character
you're
and
right.
the things that
You're
have
right.
developed you.
You're right. And then also, to be quite, since we're talking, man, I have a total of 7 kids, and I have me and her have a son together. So together we have 8, because she had a son from her marriage. So I have a total of 7 kids. I had 4 of them. I had my first wife. We had 2 kids. My second fiance, we had 4 kids. And I wanted some of these kids would not be here if we would have been together. So yeah, you look at it from different directions. But make a long story short, we would have been, if it was just me and her from the start, it would have been a lot different situation.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people could say that about anything. If
Oh
I
yeah.
took a left on
Oh yeah.
this road, if I took a,
Yes.
if my mom hadn't gone on that trip, I feel like I would not be here talking to you. And so sometimes we look back at these moments and we have to kind of like almost respect them in a weird way, as hard as they were. Do you have
Yes.
moments where you look back at your time and the time paying for your crime, if you will? Do you look at those with any kind of respect at this point?
Well, you know what? I don't regret anything I've ever done,
Okay.
because it has gotten me to this point in life.
Right. And you're this version of you because of it.
Yes. I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. Now, could things have gone differently? Sure. But as far as regrets go, no, I'm good. I'm good. I did what I did, and hey, I had to pay the piper, and I am better for it now.
If you could go back to Jonathan that was just about to see his daughter when your ex-wife was bringing her to visit, is there anything you would say to him knowing that your life was about to like or your mind and the things that you were going to think about and strive for was going to change a few minutes later?
Uh, Actually, no. I would sit there, and if I can go back, I'll sit there and just look at him and just smile and just maybe tell him to pay attention.
Be interesting to watch that.
Oh man, because I knew that change. I knew that was a moment in my life that my life changed. So no, I think we all, if we can go back and change and so forth and so on. Yeah, like I was talking about my wife, we would be in a different situation. Hell, back in when I was in high school, back before high school, actually, I was supposed to go to USC and play baseball. I had a scholarship offer before I went to high school, and I blew that. The game the coach came to, I had 2 home runs in that game, and me being this, I was kind of, I guess you would call it, oh shoot, what's the best word for that? Let's just say I was a mess. I was a bit hard headed at times.
You were a teenager?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the word?
Yeah, we can say that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was rebellious. I was a bit rebellious, man, and what I did was, I got to high school, and let's face it, in baseball in the high school, the girls weren't coming to the baseball games; they were going to the football and basketball game. So I started playing basketball, and just honest to God's truth.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like all the things, all the routes that you took, all the left turns when maybe other people would have taken a right, they've kind of all worked themselves out to bring you to where you are now and to bring you to
Yes,
this writer version, business owner, all the experiences that you had because of those moments, because of,
yes,
not going to that college or playing basketball instead or whatever it may be. They brought you here and then we get to have this conversation and realize that there is like hope and redemption, not redemption, I don't think that's the word I want, but hope and I don't know, well, let's go with redemption in the fact that someone that could be in a circumstance in which when you left prison there were check boxes that you had to check that excluded you from so many things, yet you've accomplished so much from then,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
there's just
and
hope.
you can look at it as I'm lucky.
No.
You can look at it as, I mean, there's some circumstances that happen that just worked out. And sometimes you gotta take a chance, and I took a chance, and it worked out for me, and I'm the better for it. But I could have easily, something could have happened that easily took me down another path. But I was fortunate to have some people who cared about me. That circumstance worked out. I had a lot of circumstances that overall turned out to be positive in my life.
And despite a lot of experiences that didn't, even like losing
Yes.
everything in the real estate market, and then you still built yourself up, and then you went into this other place and they're like nope, and then you were like okay, well, I'll do something else. I mean, there's a lot to be taken from your story, is that you just keep going and you keep bettering yourself and you keep finding opportunities for yourself to make a better life. And good on you, and thank you for sharing it. I think it's something that we all need to hear, because I think it's not the storybook. It's not the movie
Yes,
version
it
of
is.
life, right?
Exactly.
Right? And so,
Exactly. It is not.
but it's probably more realistic for so many people in that there's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of things that we have to push through to come out to be the people that we are today.
Yes, you're right. And all my life experiences, as far as I'm concerned, has made me stronger. Period.
I think so. I mean, I see it. I mean, and I see the way that you talk about these experiences too, which is it's you don't talk about them with anger. You don't talk about them. There's a positivity in the way that you deliver your story, which I think is
Uh,
really refreshing as well, because I think some people would still be angry about certain moments, or they would, and I like that it seems that you've taken stock of all that and you've seen,
Correct.
how your life plays out. If people listening would, want to read your books, or they want to get into your circle, or they want to find out more about you, what's like the best way to find you, since you're all over the place?
Well, for your audience, we are offering. Your audience can go to Divine and Green. That is my website. That you can go in there and download the first chapter free of my new book, my up and coming book. It'll be out in January,
Perfect.
and they can read it and enjoy it.
Awesome.
And hopefully, if they like it, they can
Purchase a copy.
purchase a copy after January 27th.
Well, this will come out
But
a little bit after that, so it'll be out by the time that this episode comes out. So we'll share that link for sure. And congratulations on book number 2. Can you before we go, can you tell us why you go by this pen name?
well, Divine and Green is it's an ode to my family and my firstborn, my daughter. Devon is her name, and Greene is my family name. My dad went by a pen name. His pen name was BB Johnson. So it's an ode to my family and my daughter. And then, I try to keep my father's legacy alive inside me in my writing.
I think you're doing it. Even I haven't read your work, but the way that you tell your story and the way that you represent your family in this way, I feel like there's a very positive piece in your world. I feel like I don't know, but are you just a positive person? Because it feels very much so.
I try to be as positive as I can, man. And then I have you got to find some people in your life. I have a mentor. I have a few mentors, and one of my mentors named Damon Crump in Atlanta, Georgia, and the guy is just phenomenal. And he does I listen to a coffee call that he does every week on Fridays, and he's a business owner, multimillionaire, but he's one of my mentors, and I pay attention to it. I pay attention to him, and everybody needs to find positives in their lives because you just took so much negatives out here in the world, man. Come on, man.
I appreciate your positivity. I appreciate your story, and I'm very glad that your daughter came that day and saw you at
Me
that
too.
moment, right? I mean, it feels very serendipitous in the way that it changed your life, and I'm happy that because of that we're able to have this conversation from wherever you are right now in the world. So thank you for just being a part of this.
Well, thank you so much, man. And you can read my book too. You can download that first chapter
Well,
for
I will
free.
now. And people listening, if you got this far, I don't do the research of my guests beforehand because I do want these things to unfold in the way that I feel is a candid conversation and not preconceived notions about certain things. And so hopefully you understand that. But now I can read it. Well, I can't until January, but I can read your first book. What is your first book called?
My first book is called Laredo Nuevo, Rise of Acosta. That is about Sicario in Mexico. And he is the worst of the worst. And he turns out to be somebody else altogether.
Okay. Maybe there's some parallels, but I appreciate you. Thank you for just wanting to be a part of this. And people will check out the link in the show notes. And if you are listening and you enjoyed what Jonathan had to say today, or you think someone out there might need to hear his story, please share this episode with them. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, Jonathan, and I will see everyone else next week for a brand new episode of the Life Shift Podcast. Thanks, Jonathan.
It was a pleasure, Matt. Thank you, sir.
For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.